presentation, and then we'll try and answer all the questions at the end. We've got a period of time at the end. So I was mentioning it to some of the early joiners. The reason why I wanted to do this was when I was starting out in scouting years ago, we didn't have a lot of money, and some of the gear to go on backpacking trips were pretty expensive. So the thought was to try and come up with a way for kids to be able to participate that didn't have money as one of the barriers to participation. In addition, we are always trying to learn how to be frugal and be resourceful with what we have available to us, and a little ingenuity is always fun. Sometimes I get called the MacGyver of our troop. I like tinkering, and so this was just an extension of some of that tinkering. There are other versions of this, of course, and you may find on YouTube or something like that a version you like better. That's fine. I just wanted to make one that was easy, light, appropriately sized for backpacking. And at the end of the presentation, I'll show you how you can scale this kind of a project up or down depending on what the purpose of the stove or burn container is for. This was originally geared towards Scouts BSA, the older 11 and up kind of thing. It's dealing with metal, and I use a drill and tin snips. You as parents or as leaders within your troops or potentially packs know the skill level of your scouts. So good supervision, metal is sharp, don't cut yourself, all that kind of good stuff. Be careful. Also, the people who would be using this, the scouts that are using this should have their fireman shit before they start a fire. We know this. And as always, whenever you're doing things with metal, wear your eye protection, hearing protection. If you're doing a process that's loud, sometimes the drilling can be a little bit loud, and gloves are also advisable. Although in this video, I didn't have gloves on because I was trying to manipulate it to make it clearer instead of having my gloves in the way of the process. So having said that, I've got about a 30-minute build. And since we're going to do this over Zoom, I pre-recorded it so that we could get the lighting right and angles right, and you didn't have to see all my cutaways and all that kind of stuff. A little more efficient. So with that, unless there's anything else, I'm going to go ahead and start the video.
Good morning. This is building a upcycled twig stove for backpacking from simple materials that you can find out here and you can acquire at the store. First of all, what is a twig stove? A twig stove is this. It's two cans. Typically, you're going to use these size cans, and then a little bit of theory of what happens. So, in the twig stove, you have an inner chamber and an outer chamber. The outer chamber channels air in through these bottom holes, and then comes up into the inner chamber, the bottom holes in there. You can probably see those there. So these are the primary burn holes right here. And they allow air to come in and begin the burning of the sticks. The sticks then produce smoke, which is actually technically a hydrocarbon gas, and then that gas rises up, and the air that's preheated along the side of the stove then goes back in through these upper holes and reburns the air and smoke, producing a hotter flame and very little smoke. In years past, we've been able to use a penny stove, which is really light. It's just two aluminum cans slid together, filled with alcohol, and produces jets around the outside. It gets quite hot. It's very, very light, and you can just set it inside this windscreen, which also becomes your pot stand. but liquid fuels are no longer approved for BSA projects. So although this is ultralight, we can't use it. The point of this was to make the project as simple as possible. So we weren't actually going to be using math or special measurements or anything like that. We're going to try to use as few materials as possible and stuff that you can easily find at the store. So we're going to make one of these out of these two guys. This happens to be Italian rustic tomatoes, but you can use anything that's about that size. This is 28 ounces. And then this happens to be garbanzos because I love hummus. And this is 15-ounce size, but it fits nicely inside our other can. What we're going to do is take the top off with a side cut type of can opener. You can use a top cut, but a side cut allows you to cut from the side, and then you now have a top that is more usable. And what we're going to use that for is when this is inside, we'll actually be able to seal it so we can store materials later. So let's prep these cans. We'll start with the outer one. We'll just take the material off so we can mark it up. And we'll set these aside. All right. And we're going to go ahead and mark this. All right. What we're going to use is a simple method of measurement that just uses any piece of paper that's large enough to go around. This happens to be a scrap of the background you see here, but a 8.5 by 11 sheet, if you fold it on the diagonal, would be large enough to go around. We're just going to come around here like this and fold that there to give us a nice sharp edge. Bring that to there, and then we're going to mark it just like that so we know exactly how long it takes to go around. Now, we're going to take that and fold it into thirds. And this is an approximate. If you're an eighth of an inch off or something like that, I know there's an awful lot of engineers that are cringing, but it doesn't matter. So there's thirds to our mark. And fold that in half, and now you have sixths. All right. What we're going to do, just going to open that back up. We're going to mark our folds and use the Sharpie because it's easier to see on camera. And we're going to transfer those folds back to the can. You see our spot lines up again. And we're going to do that at this first crease in the can. So we have a kind of a wrinkle or a dent. I'm going to mark that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right. So now we have 6 equal spots. These are called step drills, and you can see that they're large diameter, but they have individual steps in them, which indicate how large the diameter of the cut is. We're going to use the large one for this first one, and you can see I kind of took the chance of getting that marked with a Sharpie so I'd know what my depths are. But you can also count the number of times it steps in. You'll see how that happens here in a second. These happen to come from Harbor Freight. Could you purchase a 3/4 inch metal drilling bit and use a drill press? Certainly. But I want to show something that's simple and affordable. So I'm going to chuck this in and we'll get drilling. Now, when I drill straight on here, you may notice that it skates. Actually, we're doing pretty good, so we don't have to pre-drill. 1, 2, 3. There we go. You, of course, can't see me off camera, but I'm wearing eye protection. You should always wear eye protection while doing anything that produces metal fragments. And probably you should wear gloves as well. The inside of this is a little bit ragged. That's fine. That won't bother us. That's going to be inside and protected. We won't worry about that. If you have really ragged spots on the outside, here you can use a file or roll it over with a bit even. But just want to make sure there's nothing too sharp on the outside. Now we want to make sure our next can, our burn chamber, fits in the other can. So we're going to draw a circle around this here with our Sharpie to mark where the other can is, and it happens that it fits right in that ring, which is another reason why I picked this pair of cans. So we're going to go ahead and put a starter hole here. And one more right here, right next to it. So that we can get our tin snips in. So we're just going to cut this out along that line. We're actually going to save that piece for later. I'll show you how to use that one. All right, there we go. So that's that. Now we're done with the outer chamber. All right, so now we're going to use this can. Go ahead and prep it by taking the material off here so we can kind of see what we're doing. And it's okay if a little bit of the paper is still left on there. That's not going to be a problem for us. But we do need to mark our top and bottom hole set, one for the primary burn and one for the secondary burn holes. We're going to use these ribs again to set our distance. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take that same piece of paper, because, you know, why waste? Fold over a new edge, fold over a new start. We're going to wrap it around our can and mark where that overlaps to here. This time we're going to do 8 holes, so we just need to fold it into 8ths. So that's actually a little easier than thirds. There's half. There's quarter. And people ask me, well, could it be 10 holes? Sure. Could it be 6? Well, we're starting to get a little small at that point. Okay, so one more set. And we're going to put in something like a 3/8 inch hole. There we go. And we're going to mark again. All right. So there's our primary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's our 8. All right, transfer that to our can. See, no measuring. At least not with a micrometer or anything fancy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. And we want to set another set of holes on this bottom lip for our primary burn. Follow that line. And people ask, does it matter if the holes are lined up top and bottom? Not at all. Not even slightly. Just about the right number of holes, and we're good to go. All right. Now, I chucked in a smaller drill bit. The problem is on a smaller can, it tends to skate around. That is to say that the holes are harder to drill. So we're going to go ahead and put in a pre-drill. And you can do that with all kinds of things. One, you can do it with a smaller drill bit, but you could also do it by putting a piece of wood in here and pounding a hole into the different holes. I'm set up today for a drill, so we're going to go ahead and use a drill. Watching me pre-drill is probably about as much fun as watching paint dry, but I just wanted to show that it's simple. If you have a really sharp bit instead of a step bit or a drill press, you probably don't need a pre-drill, but we're going to do that. All right, and I recommend cutting the ones closest to the open side first, putting these holes in. Because these holes, being near the edge, flex some, so it's easier to do those first. There's the skating I was talking about. That's the second set of holes. Now you see I actually stepped one too far with this one. It's a little bit too large. That's okay. It won't radically hamper our production, but try to keep them all the smaller size. And like I said, here I'm using about a 1/4 inch hole, and so about pencil size. Yeah. So next thing we're going to do is mark a line halfway between that first rib and the can top, just around here. You can see this very expensive piece of equipment we're using. And the halfway point we're going to visualize first is right there. And we'll bring our paper to that level. It's something that people don't automatically know, but if you have a straight edge piece of paper and it lines up with each other, it will make a smooth level cut or a smooth level line all the way around. If it were skewed, there it makes a spiral line. But if these line up, you'll make a level line every time. So we're just going to put our line in. What if it's wavy? Doesn't matter. You can use, there are very expensive pieces of equipment that you can use to make a level line, but you're likely to have something like that when you're camping. So now we're going to take our tin snips and cut to that line. Well, how many tabs? About every 1/4 inch, maybe every 1/2 inch, somewhere in there. So I'm going to use our 8-piece here and then just do every other. So I'm going to do one line in between. Here, 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 and here. Now we're back to the start. All right. Now we're going to take our tin snips, a very complicated piece of measuring gear, and cut to that line. Okay, you can see we've made our cuts down to the line again. You can kind of right to there. Now we're going to take each one of these and push one in and one out, one in and one out, one in and one out, all the way around. And I'll do that and we'll see you in a second here. So now it looks a little like a crown here. We've got these folded out and the opposite ones folded in. And now we're going to insert the burn chamber into the other outer container. We're going to push these in just a little bit to make our lives a little bit easier when we're installing these two. So this is the outside one, this is the inside one, and it just goes right inside like that. Now you can see it doesn't exactly perfectly fit. That's okay, we want it to be tight. So we're going to use our pliers. We're going to pull each of these up and out and over. Up, out and over, up, out and over, up, out and over, up, out and over. You get the idea. And that makes it tight. And then we're just going to finish that by pulling them flat. There you go. And you can see now we have the inner chamber, the burn chamber, with the primary holes here for burn, the secondary holes here to burn the gas. Inside it looks like that. And the advantage now of using the side cut pliers is that, or the side cut can opener, is that we can put that down, and now the ash from the burn chamber is contained. Also, when we're packing, you can put some of your tinder inside here between the two layers. But yeah, so now the next thing we're going to use is the piece we cut out. You could theoretically use that. I've always used this. Either way, we're going to just divide it into eighths imperfectly. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go just like before. We're going to cut just past the rib. There, 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 and one more to there. We're going to take our pliers, and the same thing like we did before. One goes up, one goes down, one goes up, and down. Does it matter they're not exactly the same? Nope. Up. I missed one. So this one's down. That one's up. All it's going to do is stand off the bottom a little bit. I missed the opposite side. There. Yeah, we got that one already. Stand off the bottom a little bit and allow air into the bottom burn chamber for a little more efficiency. And this one goes down. Now, one of the things we can do to increase our burn efficiency is to penetrate the bottom of this one. And when this sits inside, like that, it lets the air come in around, and it also holds the twigs off the bottom of the stove. So let's maybe put in, how about 5 holes? So we're going to mark those. One in the center. We're going to go out to this outer ring here. We'll take our step bit, and I'm just going to go ahead and put these in. I'll see you in a second. There we go. There's our 5 holes. It just increases the amount of air into the primary. That's what it looks from the inside. And like I said, we got our standoff here that just sets inside. Doesn't really matter which side up. They're both the same. And then let's go fire it up. All right, with this system, because it's for backpacking, you want to use light flashing materials. These would be great for a larger fire, but not so good for us. What we're going to be using is literally twigs, and even not real super long ones, because we want to be able to put our pot on top and boil that. So we're going to use, my favorite thing to use here in Northern California, well actually California in general, is eucalyptus, because it's so full of oils, it'll actually match light. So that burns hot. That's great. The other thing we can use, obviously, is our measuring paper. To start, we'll get the chimney going. But if you're using flint and steel, my favorite cheat for flint and steel is tack cloth. It's cheesecloth that's got linseed oil in it, but it's all sealed. It'll take a spark just like char cloth will. This happens to be a particular brand, but any tack cloth in any Harbor Freight or Walmart or online, it's great, and you just cut it into the 4-inch squares, and it'll take a spark instantly and give you a good burn to get going. But we're going to go ahead and just start with regular old paper, waste not, want not, and put that in. Good. And then you see a little bit of smoke. It was a little damp last night, so it's a little slower getting things started. Let's try that eucalyptus like I was talking about. Just little pieces are great. In fact, just as a yep. The other thing you can also do is take your tinder, ball it up a little bit, break it up, make it sort of fibrous, like that. You can see, even though we're still starting the fire, very little smoke. Ball it up. There. Good. Just added new tinder, so that's gonna smoke a little bit. Let's see if we can get enough of this going so you can really see how the jetting works. Put that in there. I should have started with drier tinder. You'd like your twigs to crack when you break them instead of just kind of bend. Crack tells you they're dry. Now, people say, well, can you carry fuel with you? Sure, the point of this was so that you didn't have to. You could take charcoal from left over from a previous camper. You could take, as I've shown you here, twigs. You can use pine needles to start, and then you could load the whole stove with pine needles. I've seen people use the acorns or the eucalyptus pods. But you could bring along, say, pellet stove pellets. Those work really well and would give you a very long burn time. So if you're going to do with a smaller stove a longer burn, bigger meals and that kind of thing, you could bring those along. You could have those in a Ziploc inside your inner container so that you always had some dry fuel, and then you could add the more local moist fuel and dry that out as you went. Let's see if we can get this going so that you can really see how the jetting works. Stop for a second. All right, so now you can see our jets are starting to take off. We've got a flame that's maybe 9 inches high out of our little stove. We can add additional fuel, but you can see how it's jetting across and jetting across. If we clear those holes, it jets out of there too. With a smaller stove, you're going to need to feed it fairly regularly. So when you have your pot on or your kettle on, you just take the pot off, add a few more twigs. But this system will boil 16 ounces of water in about 8 minutes from cold. So that's pretty good. We talked before a little bit about what the advantage of having that lid. With that lid, you can see it gathers the ash, so it doesn't burn the surface you're on. For additional safety, you can put some sand down or 3 rocks of equal size to give you a little standoff. But you can see just almost no smoke whatsoever out of that system. You could, at this point, you could add slightly larger pieces, but can you get that on camera? Can you see that, how the holes are reburning that fuel? And so that's the basic build. This system can be scaled up though. If you had a troop size or a patrol size group, you could do the same thing with 2 number 10 cans. Last summer, we only had number 10 cans and a pocket knife, and I wanted to say, you know, could you build a stove with that kind of a system? And so basically I took the inner can where my burn chamber is, and I slid it down. I had tin snips, I had a nail, and that was it. That was all, and a pair of multi-tool pliers. So I have my inner burn chamber holes here. You can see there. I took the top out with multiple snips, and that became my standoff in the bottom. My primary holes were made with church key, just punching them in, and that worked pretty well. Other people have used an IKEA brand stainless steel utensil dryer as the inner chamber, and then again I just used that punch and made the primary holes. This originally was for the now no longer used penny stove, so I just slid a penny stove in there and I could put a pot on top, but I converted it for the IKEA system. And then I don't know if you can see this, but this whole system, this whole table is actually a campfire version of the same thing, where it's an oil drum is the outside one, and the smaller drum is the inner burn chamber. And this is really great because we stay warm all night and no smoke. Everybody can be close around. There's a place on top for your coffee or your tea or your cocoa. And this outer barrel gets warm, so your shins stay warm, and it's a really nice system. So this whole project can be scaled up or scaled down to meet your needs. But today I wanted to build this. This system weighs almost exactly 4 ounces, 114 grams. So pretty light, pretty affordable, pretty quick to build. When you put a pot on it, you want a slight offset, so you can go with the fancy standoff like that. But I found that it works just as well to have 2 sticks on either side, and you set your cup on top. Yeah, eventually the sticks burn, but it doesn't matter, because by the time you're done, your water's boiling and you just put them in the pot and everything's ready to go. The other advantage of this system is it's quick. You see, I still have some fire left in there, but it's almost done. So after our water boils, all the fuel's burned out, and then this gets cold in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, so you're ready to hit the trail. Anyway, this has been an Upcycle project. Hopefully you appreciated it and enjoyed it. If you do, tell somebody where to find it. Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.
All right. Hopefully that was pretty clear. And there was a couple of things that came up during it. You saw that I had a bottom lid that used to be the top of the can that we pulled off. An earlier version, I didn't use that, and it led to scorching of the wood that it was on. So always be safe. It's abundance of caution. It's best always to put anything warm on bare mineral soil, or as we mentioned in the video, put a little sand on top of it, and or three rocks will also lift it up so there's airspace. Let's see what else came up. I don't know. Do any of you have questions about it?
How come you're so awesome?
Okay, Lars, you're a shill. I love you. Thank you very much. But
Thanks.
he's
Just
also
put
on
the
604.
Just put the $20 where you usually put them.
So I have a question, like how
Yes.
many times you can reuse the same stove?
Hundreds and hundreds of times.
hundreds of times. Okay.
Yes. I've had, well, that first build, I've had that I have a truck. And so I just put it in the back of the truck in a bed, and I've used it for camping all throughout the trips that we've gone with the troop. So I just keep it, and it's part of the everyday stove for camping trips.
Yeah, I can second that. Norm had the prototype, especially at Wolfboro, and every year he uses the prototype and lights it up, and then he tinkers on an improvement that sits side by side. But he always has it with him, and they always work well.
The idea was to make it as simple as possible. The build should not be complicated. It's reasonable to coach a small patrol or even a small troop through the build with enough adults in an hour. You could do it faster. You saw I did it in about a half hour, but it's reasonable to teach your individual scouts how to build it after you've built it once yourself in about an hour. So you can get it done in a meeting night.
I can see how leather gloves are important. I think I saw an owie on your finger in the video.
That was actually from a different thing, but yes, gloves are a good idea. I just was worried that with gloves on that it was going to be too clunky on camera.
I actually had a question. Is your bit specifically for metal, or is it any bit? Oh, it's a metal bit?
That particular step bit is coated, you saw it was gold. It's coated with titanium oxide, and so it makes it a metal cutting bit. But yeah, most bits that you can buy now are appropriate for cutting through lightweight metal of a tin can. But it is possible to have a wood cutting bit that would be inappropriate for cutting metal. Like a spade bit would be an obvious, not so appropriate for cutting through metal. Sorry about the background noise. You can tell we live in a rural area.
So you use this on car camping trips too, right? You could use it like around the fire pit, and because not everybody's going backpacking yet, and this might be exciting. I don't know. Would you use it on a very, very first backpacking trip, or would you probably bring a regular gas stove in case there's no fuel and stuff like that?
Always good to be prepared. That should be a motto or something. But no, we had a new scout overnight backpack trip, and we brought these along, and the kids part of what attracts youth to scouting is fire, knives, and guns. And so this would be the fire part. And so if they're actually required to play with fire safely, appropriately, monitored, and all that kind of stuff, they like the process of figuring out how much fuel to put in and how to keep it from smoking and all that kind of good stuff. So it was one of the memorable moments for a lot of the youth when they had a chance to build their own stove and then also play with it and cook real food on something they made.
And then if you use that because it's live fire, do you still use and have a bucket nearby for putting out the fire and stuff like you would a fire?
All the appropriate things, yeah. Clear space, bare mineral soil, or on rock. Yeah.
So you have a question here. At the end, you showed to place either wood sticks on top before placing your pot or other item. What was the other item?
Right. So in order to not smother the fire, if you put a pot right on top and there wasn't anywhere for the air or exhaust gases to go, you would eventually smother the fire and it wouldn't cook. So you need to have a way for the smoke to exit the stove. One of the ways you can do that is with 2 sticks on either side. Eventually the fire inside will scorch and or ignite those sticks, but by the time those are ignited, your water's already boiling. And then the ignited sticks can just be pushed into the can. I also experimented with, I had some copper tubing and said, okay, so what if I had some dedicated copper tubing? And so I bent it into that sort of V shape and then bent the ends up here. And then this part I bent up. 3 is kind of a magic number for balance. So a 3-legged stool always balances. 3 rocks underneath something always balances. It doesn't have a tip point. And so by building this simple standoff, it was a way to hold it, but it was just one more thing to bring. And I found that the sticks were available and worked just as well. And the scale up idea was so that if you were doing, say, a troop level cook, where you're doing, you know, actual cooking of pancakes or some of the other things that are a little longer lasting, you know, hamburgers or something, that you could have the number 10 can size would be a little more appropriate, because that you could put larger fuel in it, it would last a little longer. The point of having the smaller backpacking stove was that it would get hot quickly, burn fairly intensely, and then burn out everything so that you can, by the time you're done eating whatever you cooked on it, it's cold, there's no ash left, and you can just throw it in your pack and go.
And in case you didn't notice, everyone, the chat contains a YouTube of this video, so you can go back and look at it again.
Yeah. I tried to get a fancier one that was a little less long. I mean, watching me drill holes is probably not so exciting, but but at least it should be something that you can share with your troop members and or other adults in the group who want to try it, and that way you don't have to remember everything.
And I'm going to put one more extra note in for safety. If you're not used to using power tools, my dad was a big woodworker, so I grew up in a wood shop, and I had long hair down to my waist. That's how I was growing up. I tell you, you don't even plug in anything until all hair, whether it's girls, boys, anybody, is in a tightened ponytail behind you and tucked into your shirt, because all it takes is one braid to flick and go, and your head is now in trouble. So just be safe when you're using rotating things, besides fire, in addition to fire, but yeah.
Yep.
The same goes for long beards, just saying.
Yes. Yeah.
Most of the scouts don't have long beards, but
Well, even a neckerchief can twirl into a rotating thing. So just nothing, yeah, nothing loose, dangling, any of that stuff when you're using power tools.
agreed.
Is there any concern about like plastic linings on the inside of the cans, or do you just like let that burn out in like a first burn?
First burn, because all cans have linings these days. Yeah. Same with the paper on the outside of the from the first burn. It just burns off.
I'm
My
going to
only
do
other
a time,
comment is that I don't think 16 ounces is enough coffee for me, so I'm gonna have to scale up.
and I'm going to do a time check here just in case people have other classes to go to. Also, it's 10 till. You're welcome to stay, because we'll stay here for questions and whatnot. But if you have another, if you have to get in the car, go to the other room. It is different from rank. Have you all attended University of Scouting before? Put either a thumbs up or something in your window if you have. Oh yeah, good. So you guys all, oh, so this is your first time. Good. Okay. It's even more fun in person. Did you all order the patch too? You should order the patch. It's always fun to have your University of Scouting patch. Good. Good, good, good. And do you all have more classes to take also? Just today or through the whole week too? You can chat. Yeah. Okay.
A
Good.
whole week.
Okay.
Nice.
Good, good, good. Are you all Scoutmasters? Or other jobs? Yeah.
Just a den leader.
Den leader, good. Is your den Webelos or are you,
No, I have my wife and I run a Tiger Scout den for girls.
Nice.
very nice. Make sure you look at the rules on what cubs are allowed to do. Yeah. It was,
I don't let them touch fire or anything else like that. This is more of an educational thing to get like up to speed. So that, yeah, for other camping trips.
good, and we have a parent who was went to Wood Badge last year. That's great. And I hope you're going to Merit Badge counselor training too, because we always need more Merit Badge counselors. Did you guys hear about the new Merit Badge that's coming out next year? Who knows about that?
Related to COVID?
No, that one's the spoof one, which we already have done, and it's really fun.
Oh,
You should do that one for fun.
The diversity one?
Uh-huh. Have you guys heard about that?
no.
There's going to be a brand new, and they made the announcement in June or May, a brand new diversity, equity, inclusion merit badge that will come out next year, and it will be an Eagle required badge. And there will even be rank requirement updates in, I know in Scouts BSA, and it's all in process. I'm excited.
That's great. Did I see something on the schedule for this week?
I'm sorry?
I thought there was something like that on the schedule for this week.
There is a how to be more inclusive in your units. There's
Okay.
a class, yes.
Well, I'm glad they're
The
making
new
people
rank,
required.
yes. And there are going to be new rank requirements. I think it's, I can't remember exactly which ranks. I have to go. I'm very honored. I was asked to be on the committee, so I'm actually helping to develop those and write them. It's very, with a team, there are like 4 or 5 of us working, and the most amazing people coast to coast. It's been quite the project to work on. So, yeah, usually it takes 2 years to make a merit badge, and we have 6 months. So, yeah, but it's very exciting.
Cool.
Does anybody have 10 o'clock classes to go to? Okay, good. Okay, good. Good. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. This was awesome. I gotta go.
Great. Thank you
Thanks.
for your
Thank
participation.
you.
Mhm.
Thank
And
you.
thank you.
Bye-bye. If they
Thanks,
send
guys.
that
Thank you.
evacuation, send them in.
I will. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And just note again in the chat notes is the link. So I think that disappears after the Zoom meeting closes. So you want to do a cut copy and then stick it somewhere that you can follow it later.
There it is again.
It should come up as a search if you go onto YouTube for Twig Stove and Scouts. But all right, I have 10 o'clock church work day that I'm supposed to go to. So I'm going to actually head out.
Thanks, Norm.
You
Good
bet.
job.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.